I never thought my first nursing job would be like this. Straight out of school, I pictured long, busy shifts in a modern city hospital, not endless nights in an aging psychiatric facility miles from the nearest train station. But when you're desperate for experience, you take what's offered. And so here I was, alone on the outskirts of the city, where the suburbs blurred into thick woods and the mountains beyond. The building itself felt wrong from the moment I saw it. It wasn't just old, it was forgotten. Tall windows with cracked panes stared blankly out at the overgrown grounds, and the smell of mildew and antiseptic clung to the walls like a ghost that refused to leave. The fluorescent lights inside flickered in sickly intervals, and the hallways stretched on too far, as though the architecture shifted when you weren't looking. My first night started uneventfully enough. At 10 p.m., the day staff filtered out, leaving me at the nurses' station with a stack of charts and an oppressive silence. I tried to focus on routine tasks, but the quiet felt heavy, like the building was holding its breath. Just before leaving, another young nurse, Emma, I think her name was, paused at the doorway. She had that pale, restless look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. "You're the new night nurse?" she asked softly. I nodded. She frowned. "Did they give you the list?" "What list?" I asked. Emma stepped closer, lowering her voice. "They didn't give you the rules?" "For nights?" Her fingers trembled as she reached for a notepad. "Then write these down. And don't laugh, just follow them." She scribbled quickly, her eyes darting toward the dark corridor behind us, as if expecting something to appear. When she handed me the paper, her expression was dead serious. Night shift rules. At 12:30 a.m., make sure every window in the south wing is locked. If any are open, shut them and leave immediately. If you see someone in a patient gown after midnight, do not speak to them. They're not who you think they are. Do not enter room 11 after 2 a.m., no matter what you hear. If the elevator arrives on its own, don't step inside. Wait until the doors close. If a shadow moves without a source, leave the room at once. If escape becomes your only option, be prepared to give something up. I forced a smile. "This is some kind of hazing thing, right?" But Emma only shook her head and whispered, "I've seen things." Then she left. The paper burned in my pocket the rest of the night. At 12:25, I found myself wandering into the south wing, more out of defiance than duty, checking the windows one by one. All locked, all except the last. It was cracked open just enough for a slice of icy wind to creep in. Something about closing it felt wrong, like interrupting a ritual. Still, I snapped it shut and hurried back, heart hammering. By 1:15, I was glued to the security monitors. One camera showed an empty hallway on the second floor. Then, a figure, thin, in a hospital gown, head tilted like he was listening to a whisper I couldn't hear. He didn't move. He didn't even seem to breathe. I thought about calling out, but the second rule echoed in my mind. Don't speak to them. They're not patients anymore. I backed away from the monitor, but curiosity gnawed at me. Grabbing my flashlight, I crept into the corridor. The figure was still there, his back to me, his posture stiff as a marionette. The sound he made, wet, dragging breaths, didn't belong to anything living. I retreated, step by slow step, until the hall swallowed him from view. At 2:03 a.m., I heard a noise from room 11, soft tapping like fingernails on wood. My stomach sank. Rule 3, don't go in after 2 a.m. I hesitated. Then, as if drawn by something unseen, I pushed the door open anyway. The air inside was freezing. My breath clouded before me. The light flickered wildly, casting her shape in the corner. A woman with hair hanging over her face, her mouth stretched into an impossible grin. She moved toward me too quickly, joints bending the wrong way. I ran, slamming the door behind me, heart ready to burst. I nearly collided with the elevator at the end of the hall. It had opened by itself, doors yawning wide. I stared at the empty box, my pulse roaring in my ears, and didn't move until it slid shut again. By the time I staggered back to the nurse's station, my hands were shaking uncontrollably. That's when I saw another list buried under old paperwork. The same rules Emma had given me, except for one crucial line bolded at the bottom. Rule 3, Do not enter room 11 after 2 a.m. I had already broken it. A dark shape slithered across the far wall. A shadow, too long, too warped to be mine. It peeled itself from the plaster like liquid, crawling toward me. My breath came in gasps. Rule 5. Leave immediately. I ran. The exit doors were locked, no matter how hard I pushed. Behind me, footsteps echoed. Slow, deliberate, and close. Her voice hissed like steam. You broke the rules. You can't leave. On a nearby tray, a scalpel glinted. The last rule flared in my mind. If escape is your only option, be prepared to give something up. My fingers closed around the blade. Shaking, crying, I pressed it to my hand and did the unthinkable. Pain flooded me, blood spilling onto the cold tile. The moment it was done, the doors slammed open with a thunderclap of air. I stumbled out into the night, clutching my bleeding hand, but I didn't feel relief, only the sense that something essential had been left behind, something I'd never get back. And behind me, in the dark mouth of the hospital, the whisper followed, "See you next shift."